Coming up, free speech. You'd think it meant exactly what it says on the tin. The right to speak truth to power without your government clamping down on you. But in today's Britain, as in Trump's America, it increasingly means something else. Not so much free speech as me speech. Speech that the rich and powerful approve of, and speech that never, ever, ever embarrasses Donald Trump. That's why 4 activists from the Led by Donkeys protest group were arrested this week just for projecting a video lampooning Trump onto the walls of Windsor Castle. That's why Palestine Action has been proscribed as a terrorist organisation, while Tommy Robinson's mob, fuelled by hate, anger and racism, marched freely through the streets of London earlier this month. And it's why the hypocritical American right is pushing its brand of so-called free speech right here in Britain, even as it silences its critics back home. Stay tuned. Just like Farage and Reform here in the UK, in America, Trump and his disciples bang on about free speech constantly, while simultaneously insisting that their voice is being silenced, contradicting themselves in real time. They rail against so-called cancel culture. They insist they're being persecuted for their nationalist conservative views. Yet they control the billionaire-owned media, the whole state apparatus, increasingly the courts, and of course, the White House. They've never had more free speech, more power or more reach. When Trump's Christian national conservatives in America say free speech, what they really mean is the right to dominate the political conversation unchallenged, the right to spew hate and propaganda, racism, homophobia, transphobia and misogyny without consequence, without being fact-checked and without pushback. And it's that poisonous American hypocrisy which has now crossed the Atlantic, pushed by Trump-aligned Tufton Street junk tanks, GB News, and the increasingly deranged British right-wing press. But before I go on, please remember to check you're subscribed to the channel, give this video a like, and click the bell to be notified of new videos, particularly if you're a member of this channel with the perk of early access to my videos. Led by Donkeys, a campaign group that's been around for years, pulling stunts that highlight government corruption, political lies and hypocrisy. They've projected messages onto Big Ben, the Houses of Parliament, the Russian embassy, all with no problem. But the second they shine a spotlight, or more accurately a film projector, on Donald Trump's friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, suddenly it's malicious communications. That's the charge on which they were arrested, for merely projecting a short film about Donald Trump onto the walls of Windsor Castle as he slept there. As far as the British police, and by extension the British government, are concerned, the Led by Donkeys film projector is to be treated like a weapon of mass embarrassment. Beam the truth onto a castle wall and suddenly you're an enemy of the state. But if you're the world's richest oligarch, projected onto a screen addressing an angry mob of over 100,000 people, calling for violence on British streets and funding the politics of hate, then no problem. Keep calm and carry on. That's the real meaning of two-tier policing. Trump was on his second state visit to the UK this week. He's a man who can't cope with being the butt of a joke and who brooks no criticism. While he was here, the priority of the British authorities wasn't protecting our democracy or defending protesters' rights. It was about protecting Trump's delicate ego, shielding him from embarrassment. And it makes me sick, to be honest. When I see Starmer fawning over Trump, it makes me ashamed to be British. Starmer's meant to be a leader, and a leader is someone you're meant to look up to respect. How are we meant to respect a man who kowtows to a bully? Sure, Canada are enduring an economic punishment beating from Trump's America right now, but how I wish we had a Mark Carney as our Prime Minister, someone who knows that short-term, sucking up to the fickle and treacherous Trump is not in his nation's long-term interests. And the Led by Donkeys peaceful protesters were arrested in the context of Palestine Action, a non-violent group campaigning against British complicity in arms sales to Israel, being proscribed as a terrorist organisation. Peaceful direct action is now labelled terrorism in Starmer's Britain. Yet ex-British National Party dual British-Irish citizen Stephen Yaxley Lennon, aka Tommy Robinson, and his far-right acolytes are allowed to march through London under police protection. Thousands of them shouting hate, stirring violence, destabilising communities. That's fine apparently, that's free speech. But project a film onto a wall, malicious communication apparently, and prompt arrests. This is the Americanization of British politics. It's the importation of a corrupt definition of free speech where truth is only allowed if you're not criticising or embarrassing those in power. In Trump's America, late-night comedy has been one of the last bastions of dissent. Comedians that I regularly view myself, like Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel, laughing at Trump, mocking his corruption, telling the truth through humour, jokes and satire. And what's happened? Both of them have now been cancelled, pulled off the air by networks too scared of Trump's wrath, too beholden to the billionaire oligarchs who bankrolled Trumpism. Jimmy Kimmel suspended indefinitely, not for, as Trump's White House is saying, for celebrating the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk. Far from it. Kimmel was suspended for this section, making fun of Trump's own reaction to the death of his so-called friend Charlie Kirk.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger-pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction.
If anyone, it was Donald Trump who was trivialising Charlie Kirk's death. This isn't so much cancel culture as repression of free speech by an authoritarian regime, stripping away your platform and your livelihood because you dare to hold the powerful to account. And it's not just well-known people in the American media. There are hundreds, maybe thousands of personnel in the American military and American academia who've been dismissed by Trump loyalists at the top of their organisations merely because they went on social media with comments critical of Charlie Kirk's politics. These people have paid a heavy price, losing their livelihood while becoming a target for every MAGA heavy and nut job out there. And while Trump silences voices at home, he's exporting his poison abroad. His allies in Europe are trying to use the assassination of Kirk to knit together a transatlantic far-right alliance while flooding our countries with American conservatives' money, media and misinformation. Successive British governments under Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak and now Keir Starmer have rolled over and played along in the hope of retaining American investment in Britain, access to American technology and military support against Russia and other aggressors. We've seen Starmer refuse to stand up to Trump, and the long-term consequences will be dire. We'll end up with a hollowed-out democracy where only voices sympathetic to the establishment are heard, where protest is criminalised, where speaking critical truth to power is a crime, where the definition of terrorism is stretched in order to silence the left, while the police are deployed in force to allow far-right marches through the streets of our progressive, multicultural and prospering capital city. Trump's second state visit should have been an opportunity to say, enough is enough. Britain will not be a stage for your lies, your fraud, your hate. But that was left up to the people of Britain, the protesters who turned out by the thousand. They're the ones left defending freedom of speech and the remnants of British democracy. Real free speech is about holding the powerful to account, even when it's inconvenient. Especially when it's inconvenient. When Trump and his allies shout about free speech, what they actually mean is the complete opposite. They want free rein for themselves without criticism or consequences or pushback. They're right now in the process of painting their main rival, the Democratic Party, as an extreme terrorist organisation. They want to criminalise their main opposition in America in the name of national security. They want to ban protest in the name of civil order. They want to crush humour, art, journalism, anything that shows them up for who they really are. That's the very opposite of free speech. That's authoritarianism and rank hypocrisy. And if Britain's leaders continue to bend the knee to Trump, it'll be our democracy that pays the price. Speaking truth to power isn't a crime, it's a duty. and relax. If you've made it this far, thanks so much for watching. Please remember to check you're subscribed to the channel, hit like, share this video far and wide. And if you want to support me in taking on lies, hypocrisy and creeping authoritarianism, then please consider hitting the join button to become a member. Details on the link below.